YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with my updated college football rankings just before week 7. Doing these every single week, and I'm trying to get them out earlier in the week, and here we are on a Monday. Some minor changes in the top half, but some pretty big changes in the bottom half. The further we get into the season, I value being undefeated more and more because it's just, no matter who you play, it's tough to be undefeated at this stage, but I still value body of work, strength of schedule, and I want to see teams execute as a football team all around in every phase of the game. Right before we get to my rankings, we do have a subscriber goal of 40K by the end of this year, so please help us out by subscribing. We got all kinds of NFL and college football content. We even got extra content such as NFL mock drafts constantly updated on our Patreon. There's a link in the description for that. Check it out. Click the like button, turn notifications on. Check us out on Twitter, always tweeting during live games. But back to my rankings just before week 7 kicks off. Number 25 for me is Iowa. They don't really have the best body of work. I noticed they're a little higher on the AP, but they don't have the best body of work. The Iowa State game still, they won against a decent team, but it was, still kind of a, probably a game they didn't do enough to win, but in the end they did win. And then unfortunate loss against Michigan, who a team that's been struggling. Iowa didn't look all that great in that game. Defensively they look pretty solid, but I want to see a little more for them, but they're still in the top 25 at number 25. Memphis is number 24, undefeated, but yet haven't really played much. But like I said, it's tough to be undefeated at this point during the year. We'll see if they can continue rolling. They got Temple this week. That should be a pretty good game. Another undefeated team at 23. It's Minnesota. Another team, not the best body of work. They played some Big Ten teams. Been pretty close in games that, they should have comfortable wins on. So that's why I can't have them, way higher for an undefeated team. But they are undefeated. They do play in the Big Ten, which there are some free wins in the Big Ten. But we'll see if they can continue this rolling. Maybe they're that sneaky Big Ten team that really no one expected here. So they are at 23. A one-loss team at 22, but a pretty impressive one-loss team in Cincinnati. They have a pretty bad loss to Ohio State, but at the same time, Ohio State's a pretty darn good team, and they've had some impressive wins, including this last one against Central Florida. I like the way they play on both sides of the ball. Pretty impressive team. I think it's very possible they can win out, and win their conference here. So looking like a good Bearcats team this year at 22. At number 21 is Virginia. They do fall down a little bit, mainly because another week when they didn't play, and while more teams stay undefeated, so those teams go ahead of them. Really nothing they did. I'm still impressed with this team. They have talent on both sides of the ball, and their one loss is to a pretty good Notre Dame team. But yeah, like I said, it's another week, and still a lot of teams undefeated. Those teams had to move up. Wake Forest, around the same spot here at number 20. They still have some impressive wins, and they're undefeated. Close game against Boston College this past week. They get it done, though, at 19. Undefeated, but actually moving down because other teams a little more impressive while being undefeated. Or maybe some one-loss teams getting some good wins moving up. And SMU, maybe a game that, they could have lost, very easily to Tulsa. But a fun, entertaining game to watch and a good comeback from SMU. They definitely have talent on this offense and a couple pieces on their defense. But wish it was a little more comfortable of a win, but they are undefeated. Let's see if they can keep it up. Boise State moving up to 18 for me. Still haven't really played anybody that special. The Florida State win, even though Florida State's really struggling, it's still pretty good on the resume. A good game against Hawaii this week. That one's actually a big time game. If they win that one, that can actually boost them up because I think that's a pretty good game to put on your resume. It's not the best, obviously. Hawaii's not ranked right now, but still a pretty good football team. See what they can do. Arizona State stays at 17. They got up here after beating a good California team last week, but not playing some other teams impressing. They stay at 17. Moving way up, my biggest mover of the week. A couple of those teams actually with big movement, but Baylor at 16. Remaining undefeated and continuing to get better. There's no reason why they shouldn't be up here. What are they, around 22 in the AP? They've been very impressive, getting better each week. They just played a very good game against Kansas State, who was just ranked, before losing last week. They beat an Iowa State team. Iowa was just up here for pretty much only thing on their resume was beating Iowa State. So there's really no reason while Baylor is undefeated to be up here. Yeah, you want to see them play a little more talent, which they will coming up, but they've been impressive. Both sides of the ball. It's one of those improving defenses. I know it's not a special defense, but for a Big 12 defense, improving, and their offense looks pretty promising as well. They are at 16. Another big riser is Michigan, actually, probably the biggest riser here. And, just getting a good win against Iowa. Not the prettiest win, but you still, a win's a win. You went in there and you beat an Iowa team who was undefeated. You knew it was going to be a defensive battle. Michigan's, struggling. So them to step up. Defense looks really good. It's a good win. And so they are at number 15. Some tough games coming up for them, though, in the next few weeks. At 14 is Utah. Still confused about that Utah-USC game. I think that was just a matchup problem, but they've been impressive since. I know they didn't play anybody this week. An impressive win over an offensive-heavy team, which I thought maybe it would be a bad matchup in Washington State, after USC was a mismatch for them. So, some other teams, not doing enough to move ahead of them, and I still think there's a very good team on both sides of the ball. So Utah is at 14. Now, a couple teams are going to move down. It's not really because what they've done here, just because what else happened in college football. So Texas actually moves down a spot at 13. A little scary for a little bit, West Virginia. It was a little odd start, and then they kind of pulled away, but still would like them to be a little more comfortable in that win. But that's really not why they moved down. It's just some other things happening that we'll get to. Oregon moves down 1. A good win against California, defensive game. I still, they're still very conservative. I've been saying that. I even said that before week 1. I was afraid that could happen. Herbert has so much talent, and they just don't let him loose. California, good defense, but I think they could have done more. It kind of felt like, the old Oregon again. I think they have more. I know they have more because they have one of the most talented quarterbacks in the country. They have top recruiting talent. They have top-tier talent everywhere. This team should be better. I know what they're capable of, but their coaching and kind of, being conservative at times against defensive teams just really holds them back. And but that's really not why they moved down again. Once again, it's just because of some other teams. Auburn with a disappointing loss to Florida. I think this team is still a very good team. They still have that win over Oregon. And I do have to rank 25 teams here, so it's not always about the head-to-head. But in a short college football season where resume really means all to me, and I think means all to maybe the AP and college playoff poll there, it does matter that Auburn beat Oregon earlier this year, even though maybe Oregon's looking a little better, but you could argue both ways because Auburn's been looking pretty good. Florida game was disappointing. They could have won that game. Their defense did enough. The offense, Bo Nix kind of held them out of it. So I guess that comes with a true freshman at quarterback, but still a good team, still a good resume. I can't completely make them fall, past this spot here, obviously. Number 10, Penn State. Not a team I was super high on after they were, somewhat struggling early in games against some teams they should, blow out, really. So I wasn't really sold on them. And still, they haven't played the greatest talent, but they're looking better and better each week, and then playing a little better teams. So they're looking like they're really coming together. I know different quarterback from last year, so they're coming together, still undefeated. So they're at number 10. I want to see them against some of the big teams of the Big Ten, even though there isn't a whole bunch of them. But I would like to see them place better competition because they're looking better now. They're moving on up here. Number 9 is Notre Dame, moving up a spot mainly because Auburn lost. Because Notre Dame played Bowling Green. It was a dominating win, but you don't really get any bonus points for beating Bowling Green in Week 6. Kind of odd scheduling, but they do have USC and Michigan coming up. But they're at number 9, good football team, only losses to Georgia. Number 8 is still Wisconsin, undefeated Wisconsin. Really no reason to move them around. No reason to move Oklahoma around either. Very good team, very explosive on offense, very well coached. They can compete with the top-tier teams. Like I said last week, and I'm going to continue to say it right now, I think there's a clear 7. Even though one team came into that 7, one team went out. That team coming out was Auburn. I think you can predict who the team coming in. I still think Oklahoma, they may be better than a couple teams ahead of them, but this is where they belong right now. We still don't have a true identity on their defense, really in their team. We know their offense will be good against pretty much anybody, but they haven't played, the best teams yet. Against Kansas, you wish you can do a little better, but it's still a big-time win. Just want to see them play better teams. A game against Texas, and maybe the biggest rivalry game in maybe sports, one of the biggest in sports, and definitely in college football. So that means a lot right there. Then moving up to number 6 is the Florida Gators, an impressive win over the Auburn Tigers. Defensive battle, and we see who wins in the defensive battle there. Not the best play from the offense. Florida obviously a little better than Auburn. Impressive game. They got LSU this week. If they can beat LSU, man, they're going to soar up towards the top, maybe the very top. But that's going to be a tough one for them in LSU. We'll see. People doubted them against Auburn. They're going to doubt them against LSU. Let's see if they can do it. They're at number 6 for right now. Number 5 is Clemson. I know not the best resume so far, but we know I still like the A&M game, but I know what they're capable of. And same thing as last year. They kind of kept it close against some of those ACC teams. I think the ACC teams are a little better than people think, but kind of kept it close last year, and then just, they're just ready for the game plan and against the good teams, and that's where they'll execute. They're at number 5. Still want to see a little more. Georgia at 4. It's a tough team to rank. I've been keeping them in the same spot. That Notre Dame win is good, definitely good. Tennessee, Tennessee kind of stuck around with them early, and they end up blowing them out. Just can this team keep up with the big boys? I still have that question, but they have solid resume right now. Ohio State at number 3. Michigan State, I thought they would win by a little more than they did against Michigan State, but still a dominant win. There's really no reason to move them up or down here, and everything's pretty much staying the same. LSU, an impressive win over Utah State. Impressive defensive performance. We expected that from their offense. Their defense was impressive. They're getting better and better. Big game against Florida this week. I mean, maybe that win could move them up to 1, even if Alabama wins. But Alabama looks like the most complete team, execution on both sides of the ball. That's why they moved up to 1 last week. That's why they're still number 1. A game against Texas A&M this week. We'll show my just missed teams, and Texas A&M's up there. I think Texas A&M's a lot better than a lot of teams you see I have ranked. But at the same time, they haven't executed fully, and they have 2 losses, so I can't really reward them for that. Me assuming they're better than some of these teams that technically are really better than them, based on how they played, executed, and their record. I can't really move up. Off assumptions, I can't really move them up. But I expected this Bama A&M game to be a really good game before the year, and I was looking forward to it. Now maybe not so much, but maybe, who knows, A&M figured something out. And they can, we saw them at the end of last year. They really got going. They look like a really good team. And that's kind of where my predictions came from for them. So maybe they're going to, I know it's not the end of the year yet, but maybe they start getting going here, well coached. It just seems like so far this year, it's either Mon's been off, can't hit his receivers, or when he does hit his receivers, they've been dropping the ball. Both categories I had high hopes for this year. So let's see if they can figure it out against Bama. True big-time test, but already 2 losses. Another team that just missed was Missouri. Tough, that first game really screwed them, but pretty solid since. Appalachian State hasn't really played anybody at all, but they're undefeated. USC, inconsistent, had, a bad loss here and there, but I still think, there is some firepower on this team. Very, very good receiver unit. No matter who's at quarterback, they can compete. They actually got some playmakers on defense too, and they got Notre Dame this week, so that's a key to get back in the top 25. We know that game's always close. I mentioned Hawaii a little bit during this when talking about Boise State, who they play this week. Seems pretty good. They have a win over Arizona, and they've been pretty impressive. And there's Arizona, who's since losing to Hawaii, which was a surprising loss, they've been on a streak and looking very impressive, very dangerous. So I had to shout out Arizona. And drop from the rankings is a very disappointing for me, Washington. I had high hopes for this team. I thought the California loss was kind of a fluke, and California's even got a good defense, so it's not the biggest deal. And I just so disappointed against Stanford. Eason, I wish he was a little more consistent. I didn't really like the coaching in that game. Nobody played that good. So, this is a disappointing team. And California dropped, but, they have losses against good teams, so it's still a good team, but 2 in a row now. And Oklahoma State, disappointing loss against Texas Tech. Did not expect that one, but anything can happen in those shootouts in the Big 12, so they dropped from the rankings as well. We still got our Week 7 pick'ems to do just after this video for this week, updating these every single week. We also do the same video for NFL power rankings. We also have all kinds of NFL predictions and recaps all week, so hopefully you can join us for all of that. Check out our Patreon for even more content. Link in the description. Go ahead and check it out for more info. And plenty more to come here at the Goat House. Please subscribe. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Goodbye.